What if a life-changing injury didn't just leave you starting over, but pushed you into a whole new mission that you never would have chosen, but you can't imagine living without now? I'm Kiley Como, legal nurse consultant here at Shane Smith Law, and you're listening to Mind Matters, Navigating Head Injuries and Concussions, where we connect the medical reality of traumatic brain injury to the human side of recovery. In this episode, we're back again with Kim Jutus, whose path after a ruptured brain aneurysm and then later a severe concussion led her into advocacy, awareness, and a brand new purpose. Kim hosts A Recovery Now, a radio podcast that helps amplify survivor voices and explore life after brain injury. Today, we're going to talk about how she found purpose after leaving her career, what goes into hosting her show, and then what's next on her bucket list. So, Kim, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Kiley. Pleasure to be here. I enjoyed it.
Audience, we had a great episode 1 with Kim. Please, if you haven't seen that yet, I would highly recommend you go back and watch that. It really sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today. Kim's experience with a nearly life-ending brain aneurysm. So let's get to it. Kim, after your brain injury, really what helped you kind of redefine yourself, your purpose, when you felt, you had to step away from your career, especially?
I had a little more time. I tried to go back to my career. One thing some of the doctors tell you, and what my Dr. Fox told me, is that I was a success. And I was. He saved my life with the surgery. I could walk and talk. My hair grew back. I looked the same. So the expectation for me and everyone who knew me, friends, family, and otherwise, is that I would be the same. And I wasn't. And I haven't met really anybody that was the same. You go through things like short-term memory loss, trouble focusing, our attention. It's pretty easy to get off track. Neuro fatigue, which isn't just tired. It's like waking up every day and you're like a cell phone battery, at 75 to start the day. It's never 100%.
It's pretty good.
And
good analogy.
You're down all day.
Yeah.
For me,
just can't catch up.
Yeah, it's like it's Snickers time or whatever it is.
Genie of Snickers.
4 o'clock, I'm down there and need a recharge. So a lot of these require...
But nothing will refill you.
No. Well, just a nap, going into a dark room, because one of the others is, sensory overload. Too many lights, too many people, trying to track conversations, say family gathering, party, whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And trying to keep everything. I write these down, the aphasia, not being able to grab the right word. You see in your head what you want to say and either say the wrong word or can't find the word. Ataxia, trouble with balance sometimes.
Yeah.
Anxiety,
fine motor skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And cognitive deficits. I used to be a voracious reader, and now I can read an article or read something like this list here, but I wouldn't be able to sit down and read a long book anymore, because I'd read the same sentence over and over, get eye weary, lose my train of thought, and some of the other things I talked about. But
So I'm thinking, you told us on the last show what you did for a living prior to that, right? You were in the world of finance. You had just completed a massive project, huge commission. I mean, you were riding in the prime of your life, right? And then this, boom. And now you're talking about all these struggles you have. They're instant. They're not slow to come on. This is you now, right? How do you transition out of that career you had, being such a power player, and then you transition to where you are now? What did that look like?
Well, I was not honest. It was too hard to explain, because, and a lot of other survivors go through this, you say, I really have to lay down or make plans, and you've overbooked. You made plans like you used to, but you can't follow through. And so you find a lot of people saying, oh, I get headaches too. Oh, I get tired too. And they have a retort, for everything that you're trying to communicate, and so some of us just stopped communicating. I went back to work for almost a decade, and I was financially taken care of because of that case we talked about in the last show.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God. They were my client for the rest of my career, which was 10 years. And the thing was, my long-term wiring was good. I had been in my career a really long time, and I just worked a lot slower. And because I was self-employed, I didn't have people looking over my shoulder, and I worked on commission directly with all the companies. So I was in a sheltered situation, a little different than a lot of people. So I was able to say I had an appointment when I needed to go home and lay down, or when my head hurt. And
that works.
It all worked until managed care and Bernie Madoff. And it changed the rules to my ball game, and I could not process the new information. One day, I really tried, but I could not do it. And I was embarrassed, ashamed, went through a spectrum of emotions. And I had gotten married, and my husband had watched the struggle I was having. And when I came home one day, he said, "You don't have to do this. We're fine. I get it. I've seen you be a go-getter and do what you do, but you can't sustain at this." And I said, "Well, I don't know what I would do. I would have to do something. I can't, what am I going to sit around and bake cookies at home?"
Right. You can't just,
not happening.
Can't do nothing.
And so I had a little office at home as well as my work office. He said to me, "Well, I heard your mom over the years tell you, Kim, you've got to write a book about your experience. And you're always saying, yeah, someday maybe I will when my desk is clear. I've got much too much to do to think about that, Yeah. I wanted to sweep that horrible, too hard to process experience under the rug and get on with my life. Yeah. That's really not realistic, I will say now, but we try. So he motioned in to that little office at home, and the desk was clear. And he said, maybe you want to try writing that book. And I said, that's right. It was kind of like throwing down the gauntlet, right? I was a little defensive. I said, well, maybe I will. That started it. I sat down. But first I'll tell you that I was really declining that last year from trying something that was out of my reach. I was getting sick every other month. I broke out with shingles one time. I was getting more emotional, just on and on. Conflicts during that period of time. And one day I got up and walked out of the office, didn't look back, didn't talk to anyone, and just never came back.
That was it, huh?
That was the best I could do.
Yeah. Understandable.
Just get up and go. So I sat down and I wrote that book. It was 2011, so I did, go back to work for quite a while. But when I wrote the book, things like this started happening because now there's internet, now there's Amazon, now there's social media. All these things that if I would have written a book in 1997, all of the rest of this wouldn't have happened. So now we've got all the technology, and I wrote the book, and it was, on all the regular websites, and I started getting phone calls from people wanting to interview me about brain injury or my book or near-death experiences. Had a lot of those kind of calls. And I'll never forget the first time, because some were traditional radio. But the first call I got from someone in this realm was a nice man, James, in Texas. And he asked about an interview on internet radio. And I played it off real quick. Sure, gosh, I would love to. And da-da-da-da-da. And I get off the phone, and thank God I married my IT department.
You're right.
Because
that support.
That's not really me. Yeah, the best support ever. And so I said yes to James, and then went into my husband Gary and said, a guy just called wanting me to do an internet interview.
There you go.
I didn't even know they made internet radio.
Welcome to the new world, huh?
Yes. And he
Amen.
said, don't worry, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So I did the interview with James. And then one night I was looking through a venue that had a lot of different kinds of shows, and I found Brain Injury Radio Network. And my show, yes, is Recovery Now, but it's on and affiliated with Brain Injury Radio.
Very nice.
Another, I talked a little bit about God Winks in our first interview. In this one, I called into this show, Brain Injury Radio Network, in time to hear the guy talking say, I felt like I lived in a world of Post-it notes. And the hair went up on the back of my neck, and I felt like a kid who got caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Because, mind you, there were no support groups in my realm. There was no social media from 1995 till 2012.
Yeah.
There was nothing. I had to go through everything I went through on my own, or talking to a shrink that didn't specialize or really know anything about brain injury. So I hear this guy on the radio, and it's like, Jesus, this guy knows something about what I've been through.
Yeah. He read your mail.
Yes, exactly. So he winds up, I made a comment or something on that show, and he wound up getting a hold of me after hearing what I had to say. And he had started a show. He was a survivor from a car accident.
Okay.
And his wasn't that far back. He had started Brain Injury Radio 2 years before, and he was just doing a show on Monday nights. And really, it was kind of about him processing on air what he was going through. But he had gotten, because, these things streamed all 50 states and 34 countries and da-da-da. People were barraging him with, I thought it was only me, da-da-da-da.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
So while I'm writing my book, he's processing making Brain Injury Radio be a 7-night-a-week. And he's a host for one night, and he's needing 6 other hosts. Okay. So he got a hold of me and asked me, this is, beginning of 2012, end of 2011.
Okay.
Must have been 2012. He asked me if I'd like to be a host on Brain Injury Radio. And I said, I am really flattered, humbled. Thank you so much for asking, but I have I didn't know internet radio existed till a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
I'm not a specialist in brain injury. I really don't think I'm your gal, but I really appreciate you asking.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
And so he made a couple sentences of small talk, was getting ready to let me go. And then he said, say, before we hang up, could I ask you a couple questions? I said, sure. And he said, were you an author before you wrote your book? No. And he said, and you talked about having an art exhibit. And were you an artist before your brain injury? No.
Nope.
And you do have a brain injury, right? I said, yeah. And he said, you're qualified. What night?
There you go.
Like, and it just spilled out of my mouth Wednesday nights. And that was,
oh man,
17 years ago.
That is amazing. Boy, you're like, how did that happen? I'm sure.
I was.
That's, it's kind of how I got started in this program right here. I didn't have any, not that but podcasting, all that. Yeah, it's just how it happens. It's because is meant to be, because you had something to share, because you were passionate, because even though you didn't consider yourself an expert, you were by experience. And so we're all glad that you took that leap. Did you have any memorable guests that have stood out? How long has it been? Like 16? So that'd be 16-ish years you've been doing this?
Yeah, it's actually been 17 years.
Wow.
I've been on every Wednesday night.
Every Wednesday. And that's called, say it again, the name of the radio show.
Well, I will
Recovery
say,
Now.
First of all, I do have a website, inaflash.org.
Okay.
And you can see there, one of the tabs is shows, and it has every show I've ever done. So if you're interested or a brain injury survivor and you're feeling alone or like you don't have the support, you can go in there and click on them and look at, who I had on and what we talked about and find something that resonates with you 24/7 and listen to. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of shows there that I've done. But you can also go to braininjuryradio.com and all of those other hosts that we had for most of that time. We had a big change 2 years ago, and I won't go into that now. I'm the only host right now.
Okay.
But all those other hosts, when you go to my show's called A Recovery Now.
Yes.
It was really called Recovery Now, but he wanted my show to show up at the top because I'm the only working host. So.
I was going to ask you about that A, because that tripped me up, because I did go to both those sites she spoke of, and they're very user-friendly. There is a ton of content. Please go there. If you're looking for more stories like this, or just more depth from Kim, a ton of content. Again, very easy to use. But yeah, you just answered my question, so that just bumped you up to the top of the list. That makes a lot of sense now. It was easier than I thought.
I'm just the one working in the most amount of shows.
Yeah,
pretty much now. People get a hold of me because I've been around so long.
Yeah.
And one of my hugest takeaways from being a host, and then I'll answer your question about some of the people I've had on, is I found out the necessity and the blessing in peer-to-peer support by being on the radio, because you can ask questions all day to people who haven't been through the experience, and they can render a guess, try to be supportive, try to be compassionate, but nobody has the healing that peer-to-peer support has.
Absolutely.
You're not alone. There's an innate credibility in another survivor. This helped me in my recovery, from going from 95 to 2012 with nothing but compensatory strategies I'd come up with myself, or moving at a snail's pace on certain things.
Yeah.
I hit the radio airwaves and was interviewing people. One of my favorite pastimes is trolling LinkedIn. And
I do that too.
Yeah, isn't it fun? Read about people, that you find of interest and think benefit your audience. And I call them, and, I had thought that my whole skill set got fried. My motherboard got fried.
Just different.
Yes, but, it took me 3 years on the radio to realize that calling those potential guests was like calling potential clients. Putting out the stuff in my show, and I've done all kinds. Ones where I just came up with a topic and I talked the whole time about the topic. But then one thing I saw with our other host, great host, is that what I saw being in management in financial consulting, and that's how many people have call reluctance. They're afraid to call potential guests. And I already knew that you just dial the next, and not to take it personally. And so I decided the kind of show I wanted was like this. I wanted to interview guests and people who had been through it. And that helped me more in the first couple years of being a host on Brain Injury Radio than the decade plus before.
Yeah.
And so I can't emphasize getting involved in one way or another with people who have been through it, whether
Yes.
there's a lot of online groups now for everything. Everything of the brain, stroke, concussion, aneurysm.
It's so much different. Sherry, Kim mentioned at the beginning here, she had her incident in 95, and she's mentioned a couple of times that there was no support. It was there, but it was very, very cellular. You had to be in the local area to be connected with folks or by Providence. But now, different story, as Kim is mentioning, all you got to do is look. And there are so many people out there that share these experiences, these stories, these challenges. There's whole communities. That's part of our focus. Our goal here is to help connect people to those communities like we're doing here with Kim. Kim, we're butting up against that time. I think probably going to have to work on getting you back on again because you have such rich depth of knowledge and content. I hate to end it, but I would really like to talk more about your radio show. Maybe we'll bring you back on for that, kind of some of your guests, because that's what we do here. We bring people like you on who've been through it, who've walked that road, who've dealt with those challenges and are here on the other side to give knowledge, expertise, and hope. That's really the biggest thing, right? But I see that your journey has kind of sparked this adventurous path that you're now on, and we're all the better for it. Do you have any goals? Like, if you could give just a quick couple of minutes, what are your goals for the future of what you're doing, whether that's authoring or more shows or something new?
Well, I do have a book. One thing, if I can just back up really fast and say, I do have survivors and caregivers and professionals as guests, but I am a huge patriot. I have a lot of veterans on as guests.
Love that.
And as much as I don't like football, and I'll just say that, I've had on many NFL players that have been diagnosed with CTE, and a case, I'm talking to a lawyer, a case, against the NFL and not letting kids play those games. A really good mix of everybody that is touched by brain injury as far as the guests go. And as far as what I'll do in the future, more of the same, but I'm looking at mental health as well, and I've got half of a book started on different than my other two books where it was just recall and I was writing my own experience. These involve research of the history of mental health during a pretty ugly time, and there's a lot of stuff going on now where there's a lot of argument, about officer shootings and things like that, and that you need to send a social worker and all that kind of thing. And so all I'll say is there is not an effective, efficient, available mechanism to help with mental health right now.
Yeah.
Throwing
I think you said
at it.
The peer-to-peer is very important, I think, which is the biggest thing. When you've got someone else who's been through it successfully, and every path looks different. There is some pharmacology, there is some therapy, there are many combinations of healing when you're talking about mental health therapy or just brain injury recovery. So you said it, having these multitude of guests, whether it's providers or survivors or family members or just people who are passionate champions for these things. It's important to hear all those voices. Then you can start kind of putting together what works for you.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. 100%. Wow. Kim, unfortunately, that is going to wrap this episode of Mind Matters. Kim, thank you so much for bringing your passion, obvious passion, and for sharing how you turn that personal loss into real purpose through your advocacy, awareness. You can find Kim at her radio show, A Recovery Now, and that's on the Brain Injury Network if you're looking that up online. Is that correct?
BrainInjuryRadio.com, or you can look at inaflash.org.
inaflash.org. Go look for her there. Lots of content. Her story reminds us that brain injury can change the map, but it can also reveal new paths, new voices, and new ways to help not just yourself, but others. If this conversation spoke to you, we really would like to hear from you. Please leave those comments below. Look down there. Give us a subscribe. click that thumbs up, give us a like, and share this episode with somebody who might need to hear it. Go check out Kim's content. And as always, remember, if you're in pain, call Shane at 980-999-9999. Thanks for listening, and we're going to see you again next time on Mind Matters, Navigating Head Injuries and Concussions. Take care.
In pain, so I call Shane. 980-999-9999. In pain, call Shane.